In this video, we are going to look at some of the key proposals of the new National Education Policy 2020. On July 29th, the Union Cabinet approved a new National Education Policy after a 34-year gap. Previously, it was known as National Policy on Education (NPE), which was approved 34 years ago in 1986. It got further modified in 1992. The main focus of the 1986 policy was regarding access and equity of education. Access means the availability of education, and equity means fairness, because there are people who are more disadvantaged than others when it comes to having access to education. We have indeed come a long way since 1986. However, today it is about access to quality education. Previously it was just about having access to education, but today it is about quality education. The only major improvement since the last policy of 1986 has been the Right of Children for Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, or Right to Education Act, which was an Act of Parliament of India enacted on 4th August 2009. The main purpose of the NEP is to design a vision and framework for both school education and higher education in India. Let's look at some of the key proposals of the new education policy of 2020. The NEP proposes to change the school's academic structure. If you all know, in India, the academic structure looks something like this. You had to do 10 plus 2 years of schooling. Now it has been restructured in 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 form, where the first 3 years are your preschool, which consists of KG, LKG and UKG. After preschool, when you go to first class and thereafter second class, together these 5 years are going to be your foundation for your education. After that 3 years, that is from class 3 to 5, will be part of your preparatory or primary schooling. Followed by another 3 years, that is from class 6 to 8, that will be your middle schooling. And finally 4 years, that is from class 9 to class 12, is going to be your secondary schooling. So together it forms a 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 academic structure. If you notice, children from ages 3 to 5 years have been included in the formal education system for the first time. Previously, you could directly join class 1 without going to a preschool. Anyhow, the idea behind this is to have early childhood care and education, basically the foundation of learning. So the old structure, that is 10 plus 2, has been replaced by the new school structure 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. Now coming to undergraduate degrees. The undergraduate degree structure will be available for 3 as well as 4 years duration, but it now has multiple entry and exit options. Now, what do multiple entry and exit mean? For example, if a student chooses to leave the degree at any point during the course of the period, they have the option to return and start where they left. They will not be required to start from their first year of undergraduate courses again. Along with multiple entry and exit options, a student will also receive appropriate certificates. For example, a student will be awarded a diploma for 1 year undergraduate education, advanced diploma for 2-year undergraduate education, and a bachelor's degree for 3-year course as well as 4-year course. As per the new policy, the undergraduate degree program will be credit-based. In a credit-based academic system, 1 credit might be equivalent to 1 hour of teaching, lecture or tutorial, or 2 hours of practical work or field work or so. It's a new way that will hopefully provide flexibility in designing curriculum and assigning credits based on the course content and hours of teaching. Now that students will have the option to exit at different stages and also re-enter the higher education system, the credits earned by them so far will be accounted for their continuity. For this purpose, there will be an academic bank of credit, which will digitally store the academic credits earned from various recognized higher education institutes. Degrees are then awarded taking into account the credits earned. It is similar to how banks have credit score for every account holder. It's called CIBIL score. Based on that, it helps you get better deals on loans and credit cards. Like that, even this academic bank of credit will work in a similar way in the field of education. If you look at an undergraduate bachelor's degree in the US, it typically takes 4 years to complete and is comprised of 120 to 128 semester credit hours. The 2 types of bachelor degrees typically offered are BA degrees, that is Bachelor of Art degrees, and BS degrees, that is Bachelor of Science degrees. Both require 4 years. The 4 years spent as an undergraduate at university are typically known as freshman, sophomore, junior and senior years. And in their final year of undergraduation, students are asked to choose a specific field of study, also known as the major. I don't know whether the American education policy has the multiple exit and entry option. Apart from that, the new education policy of India will allow students who will pursue a 4-year undergraduate degree program to move towards more research-based learning as seen in the higher education structure abroad. The higher education institutes now will have the option of offering a 1-year master's degree under the new policy. Previously, if you all remember, to do master's, it took 2 years. It still exists, but now the second year of your master's degree will focus on research for those who have completed an undergraduate degree of 3 years. And for those students who have completed 4 years of undergraduate degree program with research, they will have their master's degree in 1 year. So basically, if you did a 3-year undergraduate degree like BCom, BSc, BA, etc., your master's will be for 2 years. But in that, the second year will focus on research. That means 3+2 structure will be for you if you did a 3-year undergraduate degree. If at all you did a 4-year undergraduate degree like BTech, BE, B Pharma, etc., your master's will be for 1 year, and that 1 year will focus on research. That means 4+1 structure will be for you if you did a 4-year undergraduate degree. The reason a student with a 4 years undergraduate degree will have master's for 1 year is because, as per the new policy, the importance of the 4-year degree will lie in the 4th year, adding to the degree with research. That means students in their 4th year of undergraduation will get an opportunity to experience how to do research that will add a lot of benefit to their holistic education. The new policy has decided to discontinue MPhil program. Now MPhil stands for Masters in Philosophy. It is a less advanced qualification when compared to a PhD. I don't mean any disrespect, it is still a legitimate higher degree qualification, but you can finish MPhil in 2 years' time, whereas a PhD takes at least 3 years' time. Plus, an MPhil dissertation is normally shorter than a PhD thesis. Many students used to do MPhil before doing a PhD because it was believed that MPhil adds value to your research. I'm not saying it was mandatory. You can have a PhD without having an MPhil degree, but that used to be the trend. Anyhow, as per the new policy, the government is discontinuing the MPhil program. Students who have completed their master's degree will be eligible for pursuing PhD or Doctor of Philosophy (DPhil) courses directly. Another provision that we get to see in this new policy is that there will be no hard separations between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams, etc., to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between different areas of learning. I'll tell you the meaning behind this. If you look at the subjects of the arts, they are history, geography, psychology, English, political science, sociology, anthropology, economics, etc. Together, all these subjects come under the arts category. Under arts, there are subcategories like liberal arts, social sciences, and creative arts. Now coming to the hard science subjects, they include physics, chemistry, biology, geology, astronomy, and botany. You can also call them STEM subjects, science and technology, engineering, and math. As per the new education policy, there will be no hard separation between arts and sciences. I don't know whether you are aware of this, but in recent times, there is somewhat clash between soft science and hard science. In other words, hard facts of nature and the soft facts of nature. The social scientists believe in something which the doctors and hardcore scientists don't believe in. They don't agree with it, and vice versa. There are always these contradictions between both the parties. In recent times, it has grown a lot. In the Western countries, the differentiation has turned into people voicing their opinions in the form of national debates, protests, and riots in college campuses. It has turned into anarchic movements. Today, these things spill over from college campuses to the real world very fast because of social media. It is a nightmare for any government. And not to forget, some harmful forces and organizations might take advantage of this situation in creating a civil war. So anyhow, through this policy, the government doesn't want to facilitate chaos. That is why at the academic level, it wants to reduce that barrier between hard science and soft science, so that it reduces the likeliness of developing toxic ideologies. Apart from that, this holistic approach is aimed to ensure the students' overall development, where they not only learn what's in their syllabus, but also learn essential life skills. The overall picture is still unclear regarding how it will be combined. The teachers will have great responsibility in giving enough clarity and should be educated enough to handle this change. That is how this multidisciplinary approach to education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports will help create well-rounded citizens. So these are some of the key changes of the new National Education Policy 2020. The ministry feels that an increase in government funding of education to 6% of GDP will be sufficient to cover the financial implications of the NEP. Currently, India spends 3% of its total GDP on education as per the 2018 economic survey. Only time will tell how this policy will roll out, but the fact remains that India desperately needed a policy change in the education domain. It came after 34 years. So hopefully this will be a beginning of the much needed transformation.